All right. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to welcome you on behalf of the Augusta-Richmond County Public Library System here in Augusta, Georgia, to our Worlds of Wakanda book talk with the authors of the book Black Panther, Tales of Wakanda, which is edited by Jesse J. Holland. And if you are interested and you want to pick up the book, we would love you to. You can pick it up from your local library, you pick it up from us in Augusta, or if you're in Augusta, you can also pick up your own copy to keep from our fabulous independent bookstore, the Book Tavern. And they also have other works by our authors today if you're interested in reading more of what they have. Just a quick housekeeping note. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments anytime, and we'll hold on to them until the end of the question and answer period. And we will also be giving away some books, and I will tell you at the very end of this program how to be entered into our drawing to win them. Just so you know, it is local pickup only. So if you if you are in France, like our moderator, um, uh, I will not be shipping it to you. And speaking of, let me introduce our moderator, who is Nita Wiggins, and we're happy to have her. She is an Augusta native. She was a serious student in our local Richmond County schools, and she graduated with honors from Westside High School in 1982. She quickly completed her BA in communications from Augusta College, now Augusta University. She spent 21 years on TV as a news and sports journalist, including 1 year at WRDW TV 12. She ultimately landed a dream job to report on the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas, Texas. And after 9 years in Dallas, she transitioned to teaching master's journalism in Paris, France in 2009. In 2018, Black Women in Europe named her to the group's Power List for a role as an educator. This fall, she'll teach at CELSA campus of Sorbonne University. And you can find her on the set of Paris's France 24 network as a guest commentator on US life, women's careers, and equality topics. And Ms. Wiggins is an author in her own right. The second edition of her book, Civil Rights Baby, My Story of Race, Sports, and Breaking Barriers in American Journalism, will be released this fall. And an audiobook is on the way if you are a person who likes to listen to things. And without further ado, I will turn this over to Ms. Wiggins.
Hello, Erin Prentice. Thank you. Thank you for including me in the program and for laying out what education and reading mean to me. And that's just one of the reasons that I am so pleased to connect from Paris, France, again with contributors to this wonderful book, Black Panther, Tales of Wakanda. Hello again, everyone. Good to see you. And it's such an honor to be part of a virtual event from here in France to my hometown, to the Augusta-Richmond County Public Library System, my home library. And when I'm in Augusta, I use the Friedman Library. So hello to all the staff who have helped me so much at the Friedman Library. We have 4 contributors. We've scheduled 4 contributors to Black Panther Tales of Wakanda. They will be in conversation for the next hour plus to talk about the anthology that they have contributed to and the world of writing. They are such successful writers that they are going to share what they've learned along the way with you. So you can ask the questions that you really want answered, whether it's about the craft or whether it's about the Black Panther universe. Here's a short list of what these authors create. They write within the genres of science fiction, Afrofuturism, speculative fiction, young adult, horror, and medical mystery. So let's move on and find out who is with us today. We'll get rolling by meeting the panelists one at a time. And I want to start with Kyoko M. So I'll introduce her, and then I'll ask her to tell about a library memory. But before we do that, this is what I want to share about her career. Kyoko is a best-selling author of urban fantasy with the Black Parade series and in science fiction with of Cinder and Bones series. She has been a moderator and a panelist at conventions such as Dragon Con, Geek Girl Con, and she's connecting with us from Jordan Con, just down the road from Augusta in Atlanta. So Kyoko, hello again. Great to see you. Share with us about the importance of libraries in your life, and be sure to tell us the location of the library that you're going to talk about.
Certainly. So hello, everybody. It's good seeing you again, especially you, Nita. It was a delight to be with you last time. I'm so glad that we get to connect again. So in particular, a lot of why I became a writer is because my parents read to me every night as a kid. And I grew up in a town called Riverdale, Georgia, which is south of the city by about half an hour or so. And we had the, Clayton County Public Library, I believe, and because it's right across from the high school and the middle school, which were on the same street on Roberts Drive. And so actually that was a very, very frequent things that would happen. So on weekends, my parents, we would get up, do housework, do all our stuff that we needed to get done. And typically mom would be running errands during the day and taking care of anything she needed, and dad would be at work. And so she always dropped us off at the library almost every weekend. And so my brother and I would be in the library probably from, I don't know, about noon to like late afternoon when you hit lunchtime. And it was never like a drag my kids to the library thing. We were always raring to go. My brother and I were voracious readers as kids. So it was an activity that we enjoyed. That was the thing of why my mother came up with it as a weekend activity for us when we were kids, is that we were responsible. We didn't like run off to go somewhere and, pretend that we were reading. No, we were nerds. We were actually in the library every weekend in there reading whatever we wanted. And then she would just come and pick us up at the end of the day, and we would rent the books that we hadn't finished while we were reading during the day, and, return them the next weekend when we were back. So it is a very familiar process to me, and a very important process to me of how I developed as a person, is because I read so much as a kid. And that process continued, I was going to say, until we left Riverdale, I think in the second year of when I was in high school. So,
okay, thank you for explaining that. And libraries are important, and as long as we keep libraries available, we will be able to continue growing readers. Mm-hmm. So let's hear from Linda D. Addison. She can tell us how to recognize a demon has become your friend. It is her award-winning collection. She is the first African-American recipient of the Horror Writers Association Bram Stoker Award, and she received her 5th Bram Stoker Award this year. But on top of that, she also has received the Lifetime Achievement Award from Bram Stoker. So that is fabulous, Linda. There's so much more I could say, but let me just conclude this introduction of Linda to say that her work, other than in the Black Panther Tales of Wakanda anthology, her work is published in the award-winning anthology Dark Matter, a century of speculative fiction from the African diaspora. So hi again, Linda. Tell us about a memory with the public library system, and be sure to tell us where you were, what city, what state.
Sure. I just want to add my joy at seeing you again, because we had such a good time, and you in Paris, us in virtual Paris. Yeah. At that great bookstore. Libraries were my sanctuary growing up. I was the oldest of 9, and some of the neighborhoods we lived in were not great. And so my life, the light in my life, outside my house was the library. I was there all the time. I mean, I just loved going. And this was in Philadelphia. And we moved around. So it was West Philly, Germantown, and so forth in Philadelphia. But I constantly read. I had I would start at A in science fiction and go off from Asimov to Zellini. So, you know, I was just like Kyoko. I just read all the time, you know, at night, day, while I was eating. So it really had everything to do with the reason that I write now, because I was also pretty shy and withdrawn then. I know some people who know me don't realize that that's possible, but it's true back in the day. So anyway, you know, and so I lived in my imagination and I lived in the books and I traveled all over the universe in them. So there was not much of a chance I wasn't going to write weird stuff.
Award-winning weird stuff, if you want to say weird.
Well, there were many years of not award-winning. Right now, sitting in the award-winning lane, that's kind of cool, but I spent a whole lot of years just writing stuff because I had to, and I still write stuff because I had to, so.
All right, thank you, Linda, for putting that out there. Let's move on to Dr. Glenn Parris, a medical doctor, a rheumatologist. He writes medical mystery, historical fiction, and Afrofuturism. The Renaissance of Aspirin and Unbitten, A Vampire Dream are two of Glenn's works that have been adapted to screenplays. So bravo. He teaches medical students at Emory and at Morehouse Medical Schools in Atlanta. We know that's Atlanta. He's connecting with us today from Denver. So Glenn, tell us about a library memory and tell us where that library is.
At the risk of being carted off 50 years later to book jail, I was a library criminal because I read very slowly. And when I read, I really fantasize about what I'm reading about. So I'll read a passage and think, wow, I wonder if, and that's kind of where my creative juices started going. And then I go back into the book and I'd read some more and I wonder if, what if? So it would take me forever to read a book. So because of that, I never did finish them in, you know, the week or the 2 weeks that I had to borrow the book. So as a criminal, what I would do is I would claim that I lost the book. I would pay for the book, but I kept the book in my room. So I had like 3 or 4 books that I just couldn't let go of. And, you know, I saved up my allowance and I took it on the chin and I got the, you know, the slap on the hand and I paid for the book. You know, but I kept the book, and I still have a couple of those books from grade school, even now in my library. You know, but I've paid for them. I did. So as I mentioned, I am at a medical convention right now, and I've kind of slipped away. I hope nobody's watching from that because they're probably looking for me. But one of the things that came up today in some of the lectures is how we deal with fibromyalgia syndrome, which is what I wrote about in The Renaissance of Aspirin. And there's finally more research into this disease, which was often dismissed because it's a woman's disease. And, you know, we really did not pay much attention to it. We treated it symptomatically and sort of brushed it off. We're now realizing what we've been missing in many of those cases. And there's some real science going on. So one of the things I always say about science fiction is science fiction has a shelf life. You know, it's a question mark that either becomes a yes or a no. And in this particular instance, it looks like it's becoming a yes, this is real, and we know what to do with it. And we're actually learning the science of fibromyalgia. So it's really fascinating stuff.
All right, thank you for that. And I have been told over the years that something about my interviewing style brings out confessions. So if there are any other confessions to come, that's fine. That's fine too. But I guess we've developed some comfort because we've all been in conversation before, and it's such a pleasure to see you again. And so what I do want to do is to take this conversation into different areas because we're getting to know each other just a bit. So let me go to, I'll start with Kyoko. So Wakanda is a special place. The short story that you contributed to this anthology shows something about Wakanda that I didn't expect. There's a crime, and you take the reader into a prison where part of your story unfolds. So what do you want to tell about your story to tease it for people who have not yet read it?
So my story is called Ukubamba. It's a word for catch, because the story is about Okoye, I'm sorry, is given a case where there was a small child who was snatched from a marketplace in Wakanda and was kidnapped, then taken from her mother. And so Okoye has a very strict deadline to try to get the child back before she is shipped outside of both Wakanda and outside the continent of Africa. And so what ends up happening is Okoye is, in fact, this is her area of specialty, given the things that she does not only handle the, protecting T'Challa and training the other Dora Milaje. She is also someone who definitely is very heavily involved in solving crimes, preventing crimes in Wakanda as well. And she happened to be the person who shut down one of the human traffickers that had been plaguing both Wakanda and a lot of the other countries of Africa surrounding it. And so the prison scene that you mentioned, as a matter of fact, is Okoye going to interrogate the person that she found was responsible for a lot of human trafficking, especially with women and children, prior to that point. And she had actually shut him down, but she knew that his absence would have created a vacuum. And so someone else tried to step in and take that spot because that guy is now in jail. And so Okoye basically figures out the pressure points to apply to get this guy to talk, to tell her, all right, well, you're gone. We know you're gone and you're going to be here for the rest of your life. Who decided to take your place to try and get human trafficking going again in our area, and how do I stop it? And so that's a really fun confrontation scene that I was able to write there. But I would say that's the hook of just a very human story about Okoye trying to figure out how to get to this sweet little girl and get her back to her mother safely, and make sure that another mom boss is taken off the streets of Wakanda to make it a safer place.
Okay, making it safer. Okay, great. I'll ask Glenn some particulars about his story, but let me first go back to what you said in a previous interview, that you read Black Panther in 1968. And so tell me, what is it you were looking for as a reader in 1968? And of course, that's the year that Dr. Martin Luther King was especially pointed with his messaging, and it's the year of the assassination of Dr. King.
Yeah.
But what were you looking for, and what did Black Panther give you in that turbulent year?
Yeah. Well, that was a very turbulent year, and I can remember the day that Dr. King was assassinated. I remember where I was, and I remember asking about it. That was tough. That was really, really tough. My parents were crying. But Black Panther, I actually read in a barbershop. I didn't have a lot of money, I couldn't buy comic books. So when we went to get our hair cut every couple of weeks, there was this box of comic books we could go through. And, we were often the youngest kids in there. So a lot of times back then, because I didn't read a lot of books back then, but I liked comic books because I like to draw. But I was reading this Black Panther comic book, and it was just the coolest thing. And I just remembered, and I always share this one piece. I'm reading the comic book, having a great time. I read Spider-Man, read Fantastic Four, which this was in. I read the Avengers. I had a copy of Avengers #9 for the longest time. But I got to the point where this well-spoken, poised African prince was talking to the Fantastic Four. And, being a Fantastic Four fan, I knew how brilliant Reed Richards was. And there was a page, about a third of the way in, where he's describing vibranium. And he says to Reed Richards, that's a $20 million bench that you're sitting on. And, you have the panels of pictures. Reed Richards snaps his head around and looks down at this bench. Johnny Storm is looking at this bench. It's like $20,000 bench. And I'm just reeling. That's where I come out of the story a little bit. It's like, my God, this guy's got a $20 million bench. What must the rest of his place look like? This palace must be fantastic. And he is the owner of the palace. I mean, it blew me away.
And so you did talk about that there was turbulence, and your parents felt the distress as people around the United States. And in Paris, of course, in 1968, there was also turbulence and distress. Right. But so let's zoom forward then. So you were reading Black Panther in 1968, and you see this prince of a man who
Right.
probably became a symbol for you.
It did.
So now compare that to what you wrote in 2021,
Right.
because the world has changed in many ways. And
Right.
so how does Black Panther change from your earliest taste to what you created?
So in my concept, the person that came to mind back in the 60s and the early 70s of who the Black Panther could be in real life was Sidney Poitier to me back then. Chadwick Boseman wasn't born yet, but I always had that image in mind. And as I went through my education, I was always in special situations where gifted children's classes and Bronx High School of Science and pre-med and all that kind of stuff. So I always took that excellence that the Black Panther represented as my birthright. And it was always, it was sort of an example, a role model for me. Not him in costume, but him in his role as the leader of Wakanda, the humility that he carried himself with. I would aspire to that. May not always meet that rung that he reaches so easily, but the humility, the brilliance, the excellence, and the excellence in others. I've met so many people through my life and my career who are excellent and never get recognized for it. When the movie came out and everybody saw the excellence, the advanced technology of Wakanda, and the way this humble king carried himself and made his points, even when he wasn't fighting, when he wasn't in costume, I think that's inspirational to any young people and old people alike. I've been to meetings, to dinners, to affairs where you have 85-year-olds celebrating the Black Panther, wearing kente cloth tuxedos and bow ties. I mean, it really made a mark.
Thank you for sharing that, Glenn. I wish I could be there in Augusta for this conversation. And though I'm not, I will refer to Augusta. And I do want to put it out there that Dr. King was in Augusta 2 times. And the last time was in March 1968. And just that this is all part of that history that is going to be told, because writers such as you are sharing something deeply held and you are bringing it to the forefront. And before I ask Linda her questions, I want to say that people who read mostly nonfiction, as I do, will find that there are nonfiction elements in this anthology. For instance, the Tulsa Race Massacre is mentioned. So is terrorism in Rosewood and in Memphis. So let me go to Linda. You have a couple of options here. We can talk about Dr. King, or let's go this way. You have been writing in your genre for how many decades now?
Ooh, please, 50 years.
50 years, okay. I traced you back to 2003, so there's something that I wasn't able to find, but you were the one breaking through. And in a way, it's the content of your character and it's the quality of your content, the 3 of you, that is what you are presenting with Black Panther. So Linda, the question is, how have you been representing Black excellence now for 50 years? And it seems that this would overlap with the assassination of Dr. King, your 50 years of representing. Well, how do you want to attack that, Linda?
Do we have a couple of days? I mean,
I do.
So in the beginning when I was writing, and as I said earlier, I have boxes and well, I don't because I didn't keep them, but I had boxes and boxes of rejections. So that's why my publications don't go back that far. I was sending stuff forever, but to publications. But there were so few, even women, when I first started writing in science fiction, forget Black or anything else. But as I said, my imagination always went to something weird and strange. And so I always wrote in that way. And so I feel like it's not so much that it's not that I had to think, how am I going to be Black in speculative field? I simply was, I walked in the room, I was usually one or maybe one other, if I was lucky, person in that room that was Black. So it was just a matter of finding my own space and being myself. And that's what I've been growing into. And I feel very comfortable in that. I'm so delighted now there's so many more Blacks in the field. It's just wonderful. It's a wonderful situation. I can say one memory that I have when Dr. King was killed is I remember crying. I was old enough that I remember crying, and I was devastated. And at that time, I was still finding a space for myself of being Black in America, because he very well spoke constantly about how we all need to be human, that we all deserve to be human. And in many ways, and until you asked me this, Nita, I had not thought of the fact that that's what I do when I speak on a lot of panels. I teach workshops, I go to a lot of conventions. I'm at NECON right now, virtually, which I've gone to since 1996. And they they put me in their Hall of Fame and made me a legend in their convention. But I always walk into any situation as a human. Not as a woman, not as Black, but a human. And this is how I expect to be treated. And this is how I treat others. And my attitude and special magical energy field is, if you can't talk to me on that level, feel free to leave, because you know what, this is America, go. And so I have been blessed by all my angels and my relatives that I've not had much of a conversation up close with somebody, because I'm ready if you need to have that conversation. But I haven't, and I'm happy about that. So, I mean, in a way, that is what I do. I just go and I'm me.
Yep, and you represent. Kyoko, I don't imagine, you were not born at the time of Dr. King's assassination, but I was 4 years old, and I was in Augusta, Georgia, and I had watched him on television for 2 years or so. So as a 4-year-old, when I saw the news report that he had been killed, my family says I turned away from the television and I said to them, I love Dr. King. And so it's an important thing that we who create, who write from our hearts, that we make sure the humanity that Dr. King expressed, we continue to express. So let me ask this question, and you can tell me who would like to respond. But as Black Panther becomes more popular, how does that spread the humanity of Black people? Because for so long, Black Americans and Black people really anywhere had been portrayed with buffoonery or other negativity. But talk about popularizing Black Panther and how it does a service for all of humanity. Kyoko, is that something for you?
Yeah, there actually, it was something that Glenn mentioned when he was discussing it a moment ago. One thing that I took away from Black Panther, from the film version, even though I know, of course, we're writing about the comics, but from the film, something that brought me to tears was the scene when, after T'Challa is in the spiritual plane with his father, and he's confronting him after learning the lies about Killmonger, and the emotional range that he was able to show. Even I'm actually getting choked up about it, just thinking about it. I usually do, because to me, it was one of the first times that not only, again, a Black man, but an African man in a story that's being told through an American lens, but is certainly very African, very rooted in Black people. But again, this is something that Americans are not shown often. And especially not in that emotional maturity, that he was so upset of what Eric went through because of what his father decided to do, which was to lie about it and not bring him home and let him learn about Wakanda. That he certainly would have turned out as a different person if he had had that community, even though his father did something that was wrong. two wrongs don't make a right. And seeing T'Challa confront his father and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to stay here and not help those people out here who were like Eric. I know that Wakanda could have impacted the world in different ways had we been out and about at that time. And I thought that was so powerful to let people see that, again, Black men aren't scary. They're not stereotypes. They're just as human and wonderful and complicated as every other race and every other gender on the planet. But that, to me, I thought was so beautiful and so powerful, to let people see that that's what Black men can offer. That's, you know, what they're like, instead of, again, those very, very harsh stereotypes. They tend to get pigeonholed into, you know, thug roles, or like you said, that kind of tomfoolery. They can only be, if they're benign, then they're usually like the comic relief character and different things like that, or they're like the angry Black man sorts of things. So that, to me, I thought that they really showed the human aspect, and they did it on both sides, both with T'Challa and with Eric, when we saw him confronting like the version of the spiritual plane that he saw with his father was another facet of showing that emotional maturity and range that Black men have, that African men have as well. And so that was something that, like I said, it left a huge, huge impact on me. I was so proud of them for exposing that. I mean, it's something I've known about my whole life because I was raised by Black men and women. But to let the rest of the world see that and be aware of it in such a fantastically acted capacity was really good for me.
We are talking about the anthology Black Panther Tales of Wakanda. When I saw the movie here in Paris, there were hundreds of people in line in front of me. So yes, you were talking about the effect in the United States, but worldwide, these stories have impacted people's vision of us as Black people. And Glenn, I don't know if you had something you wanted to say about how Black Panther humanizes Black people. What do you want to share?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Kyoko for humanizing African-American men in general. Unfortunately, we don't hear that very often. Yeah, you know, Dr. King was assassinated 3 days after my birthday. So it had an impact, you know, and we were all terribly hurt by that, not just then, but for years to follow, because there was nobody to fill his void. But again, in the dimensions that we saw in the Black Panther, the three-dimensional characterization of so many of the characters, including Killmonger and T'Challa, you know, brought me back to, you know, many of the roles of Sidney Poitier in decades before. But one of the things that really struck me, and I still get choked up about it when I think about it, is the final scene between T'Challa and Eric when he was mortally wounded, and T'Challa says to him, you know, we have the technology, we can heal you. And he says, why? Just to put me in jail? You know, bury me at sea, because I know what my ancestors know, that death is better than bondage. And it was something that sort of touched off my story, The Underside of Darkness, in dealing with that relationship between our African homeland and our brothers who stayed behind and those who were taken. You know, we've often said on this side of the Atlantic, you know, how did you let this happen? You know, and on their side, you know, it's like, you've been gone for forever, you were taken from us. And the narrative that, oh no, they sold you out. You know, we didn't just take you, we needed them. They sold you out. That's the story that we're being told. But, you know, I wanted to address that in The Underside of Darkness. And, you know, I said, even there, where that Black Panther, T'Challa said, you know, we saw this slave trade taking place. We couldn't intervene without showing our hand, but we're going to send our war dogs out to help guide those places where our diaspora are landing, you know, and sort of mitigate, you know, the Americas and Europe, you know, so that slavery, number one, wouldn't go on forever, and number two, you know, many of them could help guide, you know, the new colonies into a more benign, benevolent society. Teach them medicine, teach them cooking, teach them, some, social facilities to diffuse a lot of the angers that we see. But, I wanted to address that. I wanted to build that into my story. Because the problems of a superpower are not a single crisis, but a series of crises, some of which spark the next crisis down the road. And that's what I built into The Underside of Darkness as well. Something that leads to World War I, which may have been a better compromise than what could have happened had they clashed with Atlantis, and so on.
And it's a fantastic story. I have read and enjoyed the short stories that you guys have produced. So I do want to thank you as a reader for being brilliant in what you've done. Let's talk a little bit about the Wakanda family. You guys are feeling like a family, like a promotion team. It's now been 5 months that you've been working, I guess, in the interview segment of publishing a book. So tell me, what's it like, especially, we'll talk about Augusta, Georgia, the Richmond County in Georgia, when you were told, hey, the Augusta-Richmond County Public Library wants to hear from you. What did you know about Augusta? What did you want to say in particular to Augustans, either as it relates to your experiences or as it relates to what you wrote in Black Panther Tales of Wakanda?
Well, first of all, if I may, my agent lives in Augusta, Lucinda Clark, and my daughter is going to school in Augusta. Stephanie is a second-year medical student in Augusta. So I have some very close ties to Augusta. So I actually planned on being there in person, but I had this conflict. So I'm glad that I can be with you all virtually.
All right. The reason I asked the question is you guys are almost like the Harlem Globetrotters who were barnstorming back in the day, starting in the 1920s. And the Globetrotters will be in Augusta in about 10 days at the James Brown Arena.
Wow.
So Augusta is an interesting place for entertainment, for reading. So is there anything that you particularly that you know about Augusta that you'd like to share? And if not, that's okay, because that just means you can come to Augusta when I'm there and we can do some things together.
You'll have to show me around and give me a guided tour of Augusta. I've seen it. It's got an overwhelming African-American history and heritage that I think that everybody should partake of. I've had a little taste. When I come to visit my daughter, she's sort of my focus there. But Augusta and so many of the southern cities have so much rich Black history that we should all partake of. The superficial history that we get about the breadth and depth of Martin Luther King is his "I Have a Dream" speech. There's so much more to the man than that. There's so much more to James Brown than just his music. There's so much more to so many of our stars who struggled, like Linda. Linda, has been swinging at the fences for years before someone says, "Hey, this woman can really write," and began to recognize, and that's the plight of so many African American writers. With the advent of self-publishing, of Amazon. I think that more of us can, begin to show the brilliance of Kyoko M, and get stories out there that don't go through traditional publishers, but #1 best-selling stories. Mm-hmm. So it's a new day. We have wonderful bookstores as well as libraries. Back when I was a kid, we didn't have bookstores, so I had to steal from the library and then pay them back. But you have these wonderful bookstores where you can own stuff. Things are so much different from what they were back in the day, and I think that young people shouldn't lose sight of that. Opportunity, 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 and time. You have so much time.
Yes, yes. So prepare your texts. I know Linda is going to read. Kyoko, maybe you have prepared something that you will read. And while you're preparing that, I want to salute two librarians at my high school, Ms. Brody and Mrs. Bogla. And I want to just call their names, and in case any of their family members are joining the program, because they were instrumental in the development of us as young writers and young readers when I was in high school. So are you ready to read a text for us, Linda?
Born ready, Nita.
You're ready. She's ready. Okay. So here we go. So tell us the name of the short story, and I'm all ears.
I just have to say real quick also, I mean, librarians were my angels growing up, you know, because I read all the time. It wasn't so much that I think that I was the smartest bird in the nest, but because if you read a lot, you are able to take in so much. And they always allowed me to go beyond my age level because I just read everything. And like Kyoko, I was like a nerd. Yeah, I loved it. So shout out to all the librarians out there, just everything. Okay, so I'm just gonna read for like 2 minutes from my story called Shadow Dreams. And I was very drawn to the concept of what it's like to be a 14-year-old girl arriving in the golden city of Wakanda from a small village to train as a Dora Milaje. And also, I'm kind of fascinated with multiple realities and quantum physics, I'm just saying. So I had to throw that in there too. So yeah, there's a little bit of everything. So I'm not going to start at the beginning of the story. She arrives, I'm starting when she meets the teacher at the training center for the first time.
Okay, yes.
The teacher walked around Dira, taking her in. What is your name? Shadira, but I'm called Dira. And where are you from, Dira? Dira opened her mouth to say the name of her village, but instead said, Wakanda. Good, you have learned your first lesson. Let's see you disarm me. The teacher grabbed Dira's blade wrist, applied a nerve lock, and swept down with her own blade, stopping within an inch of Dira's neck. When Dira didn't move, she released her, causing Dira to stumble back and fall to the floor. Dira stopped talking, realizing what just happened. The teacher leaned down, grabbed Dira's hand, and pulled her to her feet. You weren't ready. The Dora Milaje are always ready, Dira said. Yes, even in our sleep. The teacher pointed to one of the seated trainees with her blade. With every inhale and exhale, the student said, ready to defend, ready to die for the king, for Wakanda. The other trainees tapped their blades and shouted, for Wakanda. You aren't Dora Milaje yet. That's why you're here, the teacher said. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit. And that next scene, I'm not going to read, but I'm going to go to the next scene. The scene after this, the teacher asks Dira to do her sword form. Doesn't go so well, just saying. If it went well, who would want to read the story? So anyway, so, so after that scene, the teacher came up to her. Those are lovely clothes, but you need to change into trainee clothes. Did you go to the dorms before coming here? No, teacher. Dira walked with her to the exit. My name is Okoye. Come, I'll show you. Thank you, teacher Okoye. Okoye pulled Dira's bag out of the shelf, handed it to her, and smiled. Just Okoye will do. So that's just a little taste of the story. It goes on from there. And as I said, you know, what is the question? As Glenn said, I was always what if. I still what if everything. So what if you arrive there and you want it more than anything? And what if it's not that easy for you? And then what if there's multiple realities? So, you know.
I very much enjoyed the reality shifts. Yeah, that was brilliant work. Thank you. Glenn, are you going to grace us with reading? And Kyoko, we know that you are at JordanCon, so I don't know whether you have your book with you, But if you're ready, Glenn, would you like to read? And of course,
I would. So
good.
I'm gonna pick this up from where my Black Panther, Kyla, is reviewing his Dora Milaje troops, and he's speaking to his general Adabale about her troops. So he says, "Adabale, your troops appear fit for battle," Kyla called, suppressing a smile. "You offend me, my prince," she said, matching his expression. "Your Dora Milaje are ever ready." "We have a mission, Odabale, a mission every Wakandan king has dreaded." The general of the Dora Milaje knew no fear, yet there was only one danger to spark dread in the heart of a Wakandan protector. "Atlantis?" "Possibly," T'Challa whispered. Odabale's voice became a rasp. "But the treaty?" "Not Atlanteans," he shook his head, "the French." "The French, my prince? Seriously?" Odabale laughed, a breath of relief. T'Challa sobered her with a glare. "Does it appear to you that I jest, General?" "Forgive me, my prince." Odabale bowed deeply in contrition. "You spoke of the French." "The French and the Germans, actually," T'Challa grimaced. "Madame Marie Curie and this young German clerk, Albert something. They're both playing with the atom. They have no concept of what consequences may come from such folly. Our war dogs are aware of their efforts, my prince. I'm told that they can either stop or at least delay nuclear fission for 100 years. With luck, we'll be able to introduce safe renewable energy options that will induce them to abandon this foolish research altogether. You should not worry about such things." "It's not an atomic war, I fear, General. It's exploration." "My prince?" Odabale asked, confused, returning to her countenance. "An archaeologist, one Jean-Baptiste Batroc, has a dangerous notion." T'Challa walked with his general as he briefed her, away from the prying ears of the Dora Milaje. "He follows in the footsteps of Schliemann. Only instead of Troy, he seeks Atlantis of legend. He started from the ancient texts. Few papyruses survived when we burned the Library of Alexandria. This Dr. Betrick found one. He's starting at the historic Pillars of Hercules and tracking south to the River Styx. He's convinced Africa is the starting point. He's using Madame Curie's radioactive isotopes to tag migrating fish in the jet stream to lead deep into the zebra's throat. The entry to Atlantis, Odabale concluded with bleak understanding. Poisoned fishes flowing into Atlantis's waters. They'll blame us first for the act at worst. She always started with the worst case scenario. At best, they'll blame us for not keeping our pale brothers in check and out of their realm.
Nice job. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you. Fantastic. I do love the time travel, the reality shifts, going back to the 1900s. Kyoko, do you have something you would like to read, or are you without
Yes, I was gonna say it's slightly complicated, but I did bring my laptop with me just because I was gonna be at the con for 3 straight days and there's other work I need to do. So hopefully it's not gonna die because it's kind of old. I'll go pretty quick for this reason because yeah, my laptop's old and it's one of those that needs to be plugged in. So I'm gonna try and get a little bit of the excerpt ready because on the phone I would have to switch screens and I have no idea what that would look like.
It's a treat for us to listen. So yes, go for it while you've got the computer juice. Yes.
Okay. So mine, once again, is called Ukubamba. I'm just going to read a quick excerpt here. Hopefully the computer will cooperate. So, to Okoye, Komari was the very definition of scum. He had been born in Ethiopia, but had left it in his teenage years to go abroad. He tried his hand at petty crimes in New York City, which had earned him nothing but broken bones and a nasty scar that bisected his forehead, ending at his ruined left eye. The Americans had found his tendency to betray his buyers if someone offered more money traitorous and sent him packing. He barely escaped with his life. What he had brought home to East Africa were connections back to the States. He had coordinated with the local criminals to move illegal arms, stolen goods, and counterfeit money to the border and outside of Africa. It had taken months of investigating to secure any information that would allow charges to stick. What had finally done Kamari in had been his ego. Okoye had approached him in disguise to set up a deal, and he'd fallen for it thanks to his towering ego. For he knew little of the Dora Milaje aside from their reputation. It had filled her with spiteful satisfaction when she watched the authorities stuff him in the back of the car. Allegedly, he had precipitated the transfer of at least 100 young girls outside of East Africa. Therefore, Okoye was not terribly eager to be in his presence once again. Heat pressed in on all sides as Okoye strode down the hallway to the isolated prison cells. Each one sat roughly 20 feet apart from another and had wrought iron bars staggered so the inmates couldn't see each other. The stone floor hadn't been swept recently. Her sandals left impressions in it as she walked towards Kamari's cell. The other inmates hooped and hollered at her appearance, making lewd suggestions and shouting insults as they recognized her uniform. And Okoye simply smiled. She put a lot of these men here personally. It was one of her greatest accomplishments as a warrior. Finally, she reached Kamari's cell. He was a short man around 5'6" and spindly like an underfed spider. His right arm had a cast from the elbow to the thumb, caked with dirt and lint from his prison uniform. He had a scraggly beard and unkempt hair. His brown eyes were lifeless and beady. He had 2 gold front teeth, not as a show of wealth, but rather he'd gotten the original teeth knocked out by a New York mobster the same night he acquired the scar. She remembered he'd bragged to her that it had been none other than Wilson Fisk, the kingpin, but she knew better. Kingpin didn't knock out front teeth. He caved men's skulls in with a single blow. But the story sounded good to other low-life criminals, so he stuck with the lie to increase his reputation. How ironic, Kamari said, tilting his head up from his pillow as he spotted her. My only visitor is the one who put me in here. Okoye offered him a thin smile. You should be grateful. Any visitors other than me would only visit with the intent to end your life. Kamari flashed her his gold teeth. You're not here to kill me? Lucky me. For once, you are more useful to me alive than dead, she said, rolling her eyes. I need information. Oh, is that right? Kamari said as he shoved himself up from his cot, levering a glare at her direction. Why am I under any obligation to help you, witch? If you don't, I will break your other arm. Kamari scowled. You already broke the first one. Okoye's sharp smile widened. I was feeling courteous that day. And I'll stop there.
Wonderful, thank you. So to people on our call today, you've just heard 3 samples of the 18 short stories in Black Panther Tales of Wakanda. We see there are 3 different styles of stories just from the 3 stellar authors who are part of our panel. If you are in Augusta, Georgia, you can get the book in downtown Augusta at the Book Tavern. And I have to say, downtown Augusta is absolutely lovely. So authors, when you make it through the city, be sure to check out downtown. So I do have to share you with the audience. And so I imagine there are some questions from the online audience. And so as we prepare to ask some of those, let's talk a little bit about Jordan Con, if you don't mind, Kyoko, because I know how important it is to go to these conventions when one is writing and when one is trying to make connections. How important would you say for a new writer to get his or her reputation started? Does one have to attend these conferences? What's your advice on that?
So I like to do it in particular. It's not about selling books to me. It's about being embroiled in the different writing culture, because a lot of it is fostering relationships, friendships, and different kind of like allyships between people who write similar to you, even those who write differently from you. Mm-hmm. A lot of it, again, that's how I met Milton Davis. That's how I met Glenn Parris. That's how I met a lot of the really, really excellent Atlanta writers, is because I've gone to different conventions, I've gone to different panels, I've gone to some of their self-help, things like that, because it's important not only to just fellowship from a really fun standpoint, but like I said, things like this, where Glenn Parris is the only reason I'm here, is he very, very kindly extended the opportunity to me. He said, hey, they're putting this together. Would you like to try and see if your story can get in. And I was like, absolutely, that sounds wonderful. But so it's really because it opens up opportunities for your career, but also again to have that really closely knit network of people to ask advice, to give advice, to just really have someone have your back. I would say is a giant comfort. And why I really encourage people, if they have the opportunity, to do things like GeorgeCon, which I'll show you my little badge here. I think it's a great opportunity because whether you get paid for it and sell books or if you're just there as a guest, like I said, you can stumble into someone's radar that ends up being an excellent help to you down the road. Or again, like I said, you end up meeting someone and they say, hey, well, I'm doing this thing. Is that something you want to do? And same thing, you reach out to them saying, hey, I'm working on this. Did you want to, get in on it? And so that's really how a lot of it works. And especially Atlanta is a great place to do it. There's many, many, many writers of color and white writers as well that have been absolutely wonderful to work with and have been a joy to know as well.
Okay, fantastic. There's a question that has come in from the public, and so you can tell me if you'd like to answer this. Here's the question. Were any of you, the authors, excited or eager to use a particular character, or did Marvel put a limit on the characters that you could write about based on intellectual property? Okay, and so Linda, you want that one, please.
Well, I mean, I'm willing to share. I mean, I don't need to have the whole question to myself, but I always kind of go with my imagination on things. And so what Marvel did as far as what they said we could do is that whatever we wrote had to work within the comic book canon of Black Panther, which is not the same as what the movies are. So I went and read all the comic books, but I was very drawn to the Dora Milaje. Anybody who's met me, not surprised. So warrior women, I'm in. And then so that was really a big important thing to me. I knew a lot of people would probably be drawn to other parts of Wakanda, the Black Panther, and so forth. But that was really a big attention to me. And when I threw in the multiple realities, no one said that I could or couldn't, I mean, it was mostly that the story had to fit within that realm. So I read that and I had to I had to do a lot of the training stuff on my own research in nonfiction, but that's where I went with it.
Okay, great. Thank you for the answer. Here's another question. Did you all collaborate or interact with each other? I guess we probably know Glenn and Kyoko may have interacted a little bit, but did you collaborate or interact with each other or any other authors like Nikki Giovanni during the writing process? That's an interesting question for the public. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, please. I can answer that. Unfortunately, no, because no, I do know mine is different. So this was put together a good while before. And so I think that they had like a core group of writers that they wanted, and then they extended it to certain people could basically audition to write a story. Like I said, Glenn sent me Jesse's info, and Jesse let me know that, okay, we have this number of stories written. And so that was why I actually couldn't write about Shuri. And I think I was told, either Killmonger or T'Challa were off the table as well, because they already had enough written about those. And so they were like, no, but anybody else. And again, try to keep it focused in Wakanda and with those particular characters, but it wasn't completely off the table if I had wanted to include others. But they're like, in general, just remember it's comics, no MCU. And then if you can keep it related to the Wakandan characters. But the other part of that is I came in late. So I was towards the end. And so I actually had a deadline of like 1 week to write my story because they were coming towards the end of the editing process and putting everything together. So I had to write it like this quick. So I didn't get to collaborate with any of the other authors. Now, I don't know if they were able to do that towards the beginning of the process. So I kind of wrote it. I did a lot like Linda. I went and read a whole bunch of comics to get a good background on Okoye, on the Dora Milaje, and then on just Black Panther in general. And then I kind of just started from the ground up based on what I'd read, and just, you know, sent the pension, and then he sent feedback, and then we were good from there. So.
Okay. I did mention how you guys are, well, the contributors to Black Panther Tales of Wakanda are part of a traveling book talk. So Dragon Con, that's coming up in September 2nd to September 6th, some of you will be there. And so I just want to make sure that the public that does not already know now knows that yes, authors will be at Dragon Con in September. So here's another question. We talk about turning books into a visual medium, but here we are kind of reversing the tables. What does working in a text medium allow you to do with the world of Wakanda? We may have dealt with that a little bit, but let's get some amplification because the public wants to know. Who would like to talk about that?
I'd love to.
Yeah, please, Glenn.
So, you know, as writers, you know, Kyoko and Linda and I and all the other writers, we paint with words. So that which a comic book creator can do with illustrated panels, that which a filmmaker can do with actors and sets, we have to do with words. So, you know, we have to step it up a little bit, and we get to explore some of the subtle things that, you know, might get glossed over in a movie or can't be addressed easily in a single comic book or a comic book arch. So I would love to collaborate with Linda, with Kyoko, with Milton, with Jesse again on other things. I'd love to do Black Panther. I'd love to do Luke Cage. I would love to do some of our own creations. I want to, you know, step into Kyoko's worlds, and I want to visit Linda's mysteries and horror stories. You know, I'd love to invite them into some of my worlds. You know, I'd love to collaborate with some of them, with some of them on writing. We didn't get a chance to do that. I actually had a different story from Linda and Kyoko. You know that guy who invites himself to dinner and you know, maybe actually brings a decent bottle of wine when he gets there. That was sort of me. So Jesse was just announcing that he was planning on doing this, and you know, I was like, me. You know, can I write a story for you? And I was so excited about it. I wrote the story. It was Dragon Con 2019 that he mentioned this, and I wrote the story. I'd written my story by October 2019. And, you know, I played with it for a couple of months because you know, my first draft is never great. But I sent the story to Jesse in, I think it was the end of January, beginning of February. And, you know, not knowing me, you know, he had you know, as Kyoko and Linda said, he had this slate of authors lined up. And he was waiting for something to come through. And he didn't want to open mine up until, you know, he knew who he had. But once he did, he opened it up, and you know, he sent me a very short email. I tell people this all the time. You know, it was just a 2-word response: "You're in." And then, you know, a few weeks later, you know, he says, "Well, you know anybody else who you think might be able to write a good story?" And Kyoko came immediately to mind, and Milton came to mind, and I was glad that he was able to, you know, talk them into, you know, contributing. But yeah, I would love to collaborate with some of my fellow authors on so many different things. You know, there's so much richness in the creative minds of, you know, a lot of people of color that just don't get a chance to publish their work. That I think that many of us would be inspired by, and you know, maybe, you know, just entertained by. And a little bit of education.
Yes, that sets up perfectly for me to ask Linda to please show the audience your Bram Stoker Award. I had the pleasure of seeing it a little bit earlier. This is just one of the fruits of creativity and perseverance. Look at that, bravo.
Very heavy. I have, as I've mentioned, 6 of these in my house
Hmm.
because I have 5 for 5 books. And then the Lifetime Achievement was actually, as they call it in the field, a house also. So I have 6 houses, and inside it has the title. I don't know. It's so hard to do this, Amiga.
Ooh.
It has the title, the year, my name, and the category. So
Wow.
this is the latest, and it's quite a thing. Wow.
It
Yeah.
is quite a thing. It is. And
I usually take it with me when I go talk. I love talking at schools, and I pass it around because, you know, I like elementary school, junior high, and high school for them to feel it. Yes, you could have this one day. It's like a Bette Davis movie. You walk in and you're like, and you pretend it's yours. Yes, and I like the Academy. So I like to pass it around so people can feel it.
Linda, that makes me think of what I say often when I speak here in front of university students and high school students. And you exemplify this. If you don't see someone who looks like you doing what you want to do, we're waiting for you. And look at you.
Forever, always and forever. I mean, we still need every single voice in the world. You know, I grew up in a world that on TV and everywhere else was not representing me at all. But I could not, I guess I was just like crazy, stubborn, and whatever. I just couldn't accept that, and I couldn't see any other way to do it. And I still feel, and I constantly speak of this when I'm speaking or teaching, we need everyone's voice. We need all of the imagination. You know, every kind of facet of human has some story to tell that is wonderful and different. And yes.
Yes. We were waiting for you. The world was waiting for you, and you arrived, you showed out, and you showed your excellence. So
I didn't know that was going to happen. Let me tell you, like I said, I spent a lot of years getting rejections. So when the shininess came, I was ready. Not really, really wasn't. It was stunning. You know, Kyoko has written a whole lot, and you know, she knows I walk, you know, behind her one step trying to figure out the novel situation, which I'm just finishing one now. But I don't write for awards. I don't write for any of that, but I feel blessed to have them, and I use them as I best can to put light on other people.
Thank you for that, and thank you for that. We are going to have to wrap up in just a few minutes. I'll ask you to start formulating a final thought. But before that, there's another question from the public. So we'll do that. And then each of you, I'll just ask you to give your sign off ideas. So the question is, so at the upcoming Dragon Con, there will be a diversity panel. So the question is, what should be the objective of the diversity panel at Dragon Con, which is going to be September 2nd to September 6th? Who wants that one?
Okay, well, as I've been intimately involved with the diversity track since its inception, I can tell you it's not just a diversity panel, it's a diversity track. Right, so they've got several panels each day throughout DragonCon, and one of the last panels, we're still trying to put it together, but we've gotten confirmation that Academy Award-winning actor Lou Gossett Jr. is going to talk on at least 1 or 2 panels.
Okay.
And we've gotten we're talking with Chris Tucker's people. You know, Chris Tucker of Rush Hour fame and The Fifth Element, about what it's like portraying different roles in Hollywood, particularly high concept and Afrocentric fiction, whether it's high concept fiction as in fantasy and science fiction, or, you know, the smaller screen. You know, he's a brilliant comedian. He is funny as I don't know what, and he's spontaneously funny, but he also has a serious side. And it's interesting to see somebody show that breadth of humor, comedy, drama, to show that they can kind of yank your emotions from, any angle.
Any other thoughts about the either the diversity panel or the upcoming Dragon Con?
Well, I do know that we are going to have a panel, a Black Panther panel there.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
I was gonna say the only thought I had is and I've been to Dragon Con since probably 2014, something in that range of it was when I discovered it. I think that it's very important to integrate the idea of diversity as being common and something that it's not an exception. It's not a rare thing, even though the publishing industry is 81% white in the mainstream. It's not a rarity. It's just that you have to take that spotlight and wrench it out of that like spot where it's only focused on, white straight male authors for the most part. But I mean, there's women there, but I'm sure they're in the minority as well. Is taking that and, undoing the screws and pulling that spotlight around and showing the people of color who are here, showing the LGBTQ community as well in that same thing. I'm sorry, Jarvis interrupted us. He's trying to keep me on schedule. But I think the focus needs to be, hey, this has always been here. You may just not have heard about it. This is Black excellence. This is, people of color have been doing their thing this whole time. Don't miss out on it. Don't think that, when you walk up to a table and see someone who's different from you, it shouldn't automatically go, oh, I won't get these books. I'm not Black. That's what I think is definitely a huge thing that should be in focus of, because I think the con is very multicultural now. It was definitely on the majority white side for a few years, but it's really trending back towards being very diverse. And I think that's what it is. It's just teaching people, hey, it's okay if you're not the ethnicity or the identity of this person. You can still certainly understand these stories and enjoy them, and just reminding them to be more comfortable diversifying the different things that they read and watch and different things like that. So that's what I would say.
I wanted to add another quick one. I know our time is short, but just to support what Glenn and Kyoko are saying, I've been working in the Horror Writers Association for many years, and I've been on their board of trustees and involved in many things that they do. And a big thing for me is, like everyone has said, to put out in the world, look, in front of the association and membership, there are more people, and I love me some Stephen King. I ain't got nothing against Stephen King, but I'm saying there's a whole lot of other things and people of all kinds of things that look different that are writing. And so I've been part of an initiative there to put in a newsletter every month for years now, little write-ups on different people who are anything but white men. Ain't nothing against them. I married one. I'm just saying once. I'm just saying. So just to put out there anybody else so that the membership can start to see with their own reading that there are many choices of creativity.
Yes. And one of our audience members says that he would like to see a short story anthology for Luke Cage or for Falcon. Oh, yeah. Wow. Brilliant ideas. Brilliant ideas.
I would love that. I'm same deal. I would absolutely love to read that. That would be a lot of fun.
Okay. So let's do a 30 and Glenn is signing up. Let's do a 30 to 60 second wrap up and just your final thoughts. And I will start with Kyoko, but let me say that, so of course, J.K. Rowling is the most successful author, according to Statistica. Second is James Patterson. Third is someone from 2018 who wrote Becoming, Michelle Obama.
Very nice.
So talk about what that means going forward, not just for you, contributors to Black Panther Tales of Wakanda, but for the reading and the writing public. And Statistica also says that in addition to Stephen King, over 45,000 people in 2019 published books. 40,000 people. So the world of Wakanda, what you've contributed to, we are changing what is published, what is read, and what is on the screens. So 30 to 60 seconds wrapping up, and I'll go to Kyoko first in case she has to move on for her next.
I was gonna say I've got like 3 minutes, and then I got to jet to my next panel.
Okay. Yes. So please share.
Yes. Actually, the hearing that about Michelle Obama's book is fantastic. It was really cute because she and Obama and her husband are good friends with Stephen Colbert. He's had them on The Late Show several times. And the last time, so Barack's book came out, I believe this year, if it's not already out, it's coming out. And he was joking with Stephen about that. He was like, yeah, no, when Stephen brought up, he was like, so you do know your wife's like incredible achievements. He's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to sell even a Porsche. We keep joking that they're going to bundle it together and be like, you know, you're here for Michelle. Why don't you get mine too while you're here? It was very, very cute. He was very humbled and delighted by the success of her work. And I also, like I said, when Stephen did an interview with her as well, and it was really dynamic and just getting to learn what a poised and sympathetic and intelligent and complicated person that she is. So to hear that, not only it be a Black person, but again, someone with her background being so educated and, you know, but also not unfamiliar with struggle, I think is very important. And so, yeah, I was really, really excited to hear that statistic just now, because again, I think she is a phenomenal woman, and just there's so much to learn from her. And I enjoy hearing that it's in that proportion, that there wasn't that thing that certain white people have where they see a book by a Black person and go, oh, but I'm not Black, so I'm not going to get it. Obviously, she's found a way to connect with people where that isn't happening as often as it tends to in mainstream fiction. So, I'm sorry, not fiction, but mainstream publishing. So that's really cool. I'll do my ending spiel very quickly. So anything that I've written, you can find at shewhowritesmonsters.com. That's my digital books, paperbacks, social media, all that good stuff is there. And you can also, if you wanted to pick up a copy of Black Panther anthology, it's on that site as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. And it's lovely to see you this time. I look forward to the third time that we can talk.
Yep, looking forward to it.
We'll go to Linda for her 30 to 60 seconds wrap up from Augusta.
Well, I'm just happy to be back with my family a little bit. You know, we were all been busy, but there was a good long run there. We were seeing each other, it felt like every other day. And shout out to Kim McKelling. I'm sorry, Kim, I'm messing up your last name, please, who is our guiding light and keeping us out there and organized. So you can find anything and everything about me under Linda Addison Writer, altogether.com. And I'm just delighted to be here. I love talking about this book. I tell people all the time, it's a lot of fun. It's just fun. There's no pictures. You can make pictures in your head with the words and enjoy. Besides the fact that deep inside a lot of these stories, we have built, you know, social comment, but it's just fun. So, and why haven't you bought it yet? I go to a lot of panels and a lot of talks, and people are like, I've been meaning to buy that. I said, you should be ashamed.
Yes.
Of yourself for not having some fun in your life. Go and buy it now.
That's
I
right.
had a waitress at a restaurant bring her phone over and said, see, I just ordered it. I was like, I would have taken your word for it. You didn't have to prove it to me.
Yes, anyone looking for 500 pages of thrilling Wakanda universe stories, you've got 500 pages here.
It goes quick.
Yeah, what are you waiting for is what I tell people. What are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for? Glenn, 30 to 60 seconds.
Okay, all right, wrapping up. I've always been guided by the words of Star Trek, where no one has gone before. It's great to have role models, but don't be afraid to be a pioneer, to you know, go out there and explore. And you know, as Linda said, don't write to what's already out there. Okay, you're always going to miss that. It's like trying to catch a bullet that's already been fired. You can't catch it. You're not fast enough. All right. So write what's in your heart, write what you're seeing, write what you know, write what you believe or would hope for. But write what you want to write, because that passion always drives the words. So, you know, be Michael Crichton and write across genres. Be Stephen King, write across genres. You know, be the don't let anyone pigeonhole you or label you. all right? Be yourself. And you are a three-dimensional individual, you're not a one-dimensional picture.
Yes, and if you don't see someone who looks like you doing it, we're waiting for you.
Do it anyway. Do it anyway.
Do it anyway. So thank you today to authors Kyoko M, Linda Addison, and Glenn Parris. Thank you, online audience. And thank you, Augusta-Richmond County Public Library, for hosting the event and for being my home library all those years ago. I'm Nita Wiggins, and I'm saying goodbye from Parris.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Nita. Best question ever.